You have one new message. Main menu. To listen to your messages, press 1.
The constant global connection we are used to today has not always been the norm. In fact, just 15 years ago, the world looked more like this instead of this. When social media became mainstream at the end of the 2000s, it exploded. User numbers increased on an exponential scale, so did the money involved, and technology
But there is one last thing.
was just good enough to keep us even more connected. People are sharing everything from life milestones to rather unnecessary things. Revolutions were named after platforms,
It's being called the Twitter revolution.
and the people behind it were godlike figures.
Mark Zuckerberg.
Evan Spiegel.
Jack Dorsey.
Thank you, Mark.
And so it wasn't until 2016 that a wider public started to see the potential dangers behind these platforms.
Donald Trump wins the presidency.
The nation has voted to leave.
Without realizing, we transformed into a world where social media shapes public opinion. And while platform founders might have lost their godlike status,
Mark Zuckerberg has been under pressure to appear.
business wasn't hurt at all.
Facebook this week has hit 2 billion global users.
That amounts to more than a quarter of the world's population.
Just like a junkie's constant desire for narcotics, the need for constant communication and thus social validation is anchored within each and every one of us. Except each high only lasts exactly this long. Neuroeconomist Paul Sack actually found out that social networking affects the human brain just like falling in love, by triggering the brain to release a hormone called oxytocin. Following this logic, not using social media would be like going through a breakup. I wanted to find this out myself. Despite being an above-average user of social media platforms, I got rid of my smartphone, meaning that this one is gonna be history, and just hoped the breakup wouldn't be too hard. Since basic communication is essential in today's world, I got an old Nokia for basic calls and texts. And because I didn't trust myself, installed a site blocker on my computer. Within just 2 hours after blocking social media, I, without realizing, had tried to access Facebook around 8 times. And instead of the usual 100 messages per day, I received barely any. But when I did, oxytocin really kicked in. Waking up and not using my smartphone immediately felt unusual. Studies, however, show that it's not only me. 1 out of 4 adults check their phone within the first minute after waking up, and a stunning 80% of smartphone users check their phone before even brushing their teeth. With that in mind, I asked media science professor Dr. Zurstege why it is so hard to withstand social media.
That is because these technologies are constantly being optimized to transform us into as continuous users as possible.
This means that the best engineers and coders in the world work in a way to keep us in front of the screen even longer. 100 years ago, around 70% of the world's population were somehow working within the agricultural sector. With the industrialization of the food industry, those human resources became available for other parts of the economy, paving the way for life as we know it today. The resulting oversupply and its excessive consumption created unforeseen problems, but no one would consider food to be the enemy. Maybe social media can be seen as yet another vice of humanity. While it helps us making progress in so many ways, it's easy to abuse its constant availability, which is why continuously questioning our behavior is so important. Luckily, there's one major advantage. While both might be human rights, only one is necessarily a human obligation.
Message deleted.